I have talked and written a bit about in the past the role of documentary and animation in Canadian cinema and its history, the fundamental and primary role. In fact, narrative cinema in Canada has no real history except for blips on the radar here and there uh, until really the 70s. I mean, and even then, the whole idea is that Canada has an inferiority complex and it can never box against the United States of America in a ring without getting knocked the fuck out. And a lot of people have written about Canada and its loser complex in relation to the United States. But because of John Grierson and the National Film Board of Canada, a man from Scotland, saw Robert Flaherty's in the Nick of the North and got real inspired. He was going to basically help build Canadian cinema from the ground up. And it was all about the National Film Board of Canada's mandate. It was documentaries and animation, and that's where we won Oscars and major international awards, and that's how Canada became known in its humble way, naturally. And we never really made many inroads, and a lot of that is because Hollywood and the American corporate colossus blackballed Canada, made sure that Canada could not make popular, successful narrative movies. They did whatever they could to suppress it, and then started making deals with the federal government. To the extent that in the 50s, there's a lot of movies made in Hollywood that make little references to Canada as a way of paying Canada to not make movies. And it's ridiculous. It'll be like two characters on a Technicolor plane, a man and a woman in romantic embrace, and the man looks up. He's like, "Those ducks are going to Canada," and that would help. That was the U.S. concession. And then you also have really remarkable films like Anthony Mann's 1954 Technicolor Western, The Far Country, where they shot a lot of the exteriors here in Alberta out by Jasper. And it's a big Technicolor movie. It's psychedelic. I mean, so that's a very special thing. But in the movie, they're basically, I think, pretending it's Alaska, the Alaskan gold rush. Uh, Anywho, they did a lot of that. And it was what it was. Until the tax shelter phase, the Canadian tax shelter phase, where investors were given tax incentives to invest in Canadian film. This quickly led to the degeneration of content and the increase in production. So, a lot of exploitation movies and horror movies and stuff that would get the journalists all irate. Like, our tax dollars are doing what now? Especially the critic who laid into Cronenberg over Shivers, his first feature, which was a tax shelter movie. I'm just calling it the most obscene, disgusting garbage you'd ever seen. It was like unbelievable. Uh, but like then, so like some of the tax shelter films that you know of are Black Christmas and My Bloody Valentine, and the big moneymaker all over planet Earth, an international bombshell was Porky's, the sex comedy Porky's, which does everything it can to make you think it's American flags, American cops, the whole thing. But is a Canadian film, and so that was also how it would often go down. To make a tax shelter Canadian film, you had to have like 85% of the crew had to be Canadian, and like 75% of the cast. And so what they would always do is get two American actors, a totally American, a totally Canadian crew beyond the director or photographer who would be chosen with the financiers and the producer and the director, right? I mean, the director's not going to work with just any director of photography usually. And so that's how it would go. And they would have American flags everywhere. So like Porky's, there's like a scene. Or no, I think it might be Black Christmas. It's the American flag on the desk as the detective is like asking the girl questions. Stuff like that. And then, so they're pretending it's America, but they have all these regulations specific to, how they get made, but they ended up making all kinds of interesting things. And one of the films that's really interesting from right at the early part of that is a film I put on my blog recently in my 25 underrated or unsung masterpieces cinematographic about young people. And that's The Little Girl That Lived Down the Lane, which is a Canadian film, and it's a masterpiece. And it stars Jodie Foster, young Jodie Foster, playing a 13-year-old girl, and Martin Sheen as a creep, and then everybody else is Canadian, and that's how they got it made. They financed it, and there's American flags in there, and the whole retinue of tax shelter maneuvers. It's really funny, but it's such that to me is a really precious and great artifact. That movie, I've been obsessed with it for a very long time, and my ex and I, we really love that movie a lot. We identify with little Jodie Foster. When I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and I met my AA sponsor Paul in the desert, the low desert valley, the Coachella Valley. He would joke with me because the way I had become, I was a sort of a surly, unkempt person a lot of the time. And he saw some photos of me when I was younger. He said, "Jesus Christ, you look like Jodie Foster." And I'm the kind of guy who's just like, thank you very much.